Welcome and thanks for joining me for the Gut Health Turnaround Series 2.0, 21 Ways to Heal Your Gut, Reclaim Your Energy, and Look and Feel Amazing. My name is Leah Kline, Health and Wholeness Coach, and I will be your host. Today I'm being joined by Dr. Nina Savelle-Rocklin. Did I get that pronounced right?
Right, thank you.
Okay.
I've heard interesting permutations of my name. You got it right.
Okay, good. All right, so there is often more to our gut problems than just what we eat. And we've been talking a lot about what we eat. But it can also be affected by why we're eating and the way we're eating. And we can take the healthiest piece of food and turn it into a bad food by when we eat it and the way we're eating it. And so some of that we'll kind of get into a little bit today. And today our actual topic is, it's not about willpower, how to lose weight without dieting. So a little background information. Nina Savelle-Rocklin, Psych D, or however you
just Dr. Nina, because it's a lot easier to say.
Okay.
Dr. Nina.
Dr. Nina, okay, is a psychoanalyst, author, speaker, internationally recognized expert in weight, food, and body image issues. She has been featured in the New York Times, Prevention, Real Simple, Huffington Post, and many other publications, and is a frequent guest expert. She was invited to present at the prestigious National Meeting of Psychoanalysts, American Psychoanalysts Association, and Dr. Nina's personal experience with this issue gives her a unique understanding of what it's like to struggle, and she knows change is possible. She brings a fresh perspective by helping people understand why they turn to food instead of focusing on what they're eating. In addition to her private practice, she writes an award-winning blog, Make Peace with Food, hosts a popular podcast, Win the Diet War with Dr. Nina, and offers food for thought on her video series, The Dr. Nina Show. She is a contributor to 2 books on psychoanalysis and her own book on treatment of eating disorders, which is being published by Rowman and Littlefield later this year. And her site is winthedietwar.com. So to start us off, can you share some of your history and kind of what led you to do this work?
Well, that goes back all the way to when I was 5 years old. And I suddenly and randomly just decided, I remember the actual moment it happened, I was looking down at my legs and I thought, I think I would be better if I had thinner legs. Mm-hmm. By the media whatsoever. My mom and dad were like ex-hippie college professors. They did not watch TV. My mom read Time magazine, not Glamour. I had no media influence that would sort of dictate that thought. And so thus began my years of torture, which just got worse and became full-blown eating disorders by the time I was an adolescent. And each night I would fall asleep, counting fat grams and calories and wondering, would I lose weight the next morning or gain it? And my entire day and my entire life was predicated on what the scale said. If it went up, I was just on cloud 9. I was euphoric. Life was great. If it, I think I got that. Went down. If it went up, I was devastated. I think I said that backwards.
We know what you mean.
Freudian. That was the Freudian slip. So I was in this hell. I mean, every journal, it's just full of numbers. When I look back at my old diaries from when I was a kid, it's just full of numbers of calories and what I was going to eat and not eat and calories burned and all of that. And it's like I lost my entire childhood to being worried about my weight. And finally, I went to therapy because I was anxious all the time. No wonder, right?
Yeah.
And I went to therapy for 3 years, once a week, never missed a beat, never missed a week. And I talked about my guy issues, my family, my future, my friends. I talked about everything except food. My therapist had no idea that
Mm.
I was struggling with in succession. It would be anorexia, bulimia, binge eating, anorexia, bulimia, binge eating. It just went on and on. She had no idea. But by the time that I left therapy 3 years later, all my eating disorder behavior was gone and has not come back. So people say, what? How can you recover from an eating disorder, from 3 eating disorders actually, without ever talking about food? And the reason is that it was never about food. Food was the symptom. It was not the problem. And the real problem was my sort of toxic, mean relationship to myself and the way that I responded to myself. You know, when I learned to be comforting with words instead of ice cream, things changed. When I learned to be responsive and nice to myself instead of critical, things changed. And so this really highlights how it has nothing to do with food. Food is the solution to the problem. Food is not a problem. And I should also say, why? Why at age 5 did I suddenly randomly think, my thighs are fat? Well, when I was doing psychoanalytic training, I was really perplexed about this, and I finally figured out that at the time I was being told, you're too loud, you're too sensitive, you're just too much. And having a very concrete 5-year-old brain, that became, oh, there's too much of me. And if there were just less of me, maybe I'd be more likable. So, as you can see, it's really can be very, very deep as to figuring out what's eating at you. But when you figure that out, everything changes. And I'm living proof that there's always hope.
Yeah, there's so much about our eating that is not about our eating.
Exactly.
Been there, done that.
Yes.
Have the T-shirt, and everything else. But each year there's a different fad diet, and they can have benefits, but obviously nothing is happening in the head. Low carb, gluten-free, paleo, you name it. Why do you think these diets don't work?
Well, the truth is they do work until you go off them, but you can't stay on a diet. Ultimately, diets are about deprivation, and the anticipation of deprivation only makes you want something more. If you say, oh, I'm never going to eat this until I lose X amount of pounds, then this is all you can think about, right?
Yeah.
If you're thinking about not having pizza or pasta or ice cream or what have you all day, then you've got pizza, pasta, and ice cream on the brain instead of wondering why you're eating it. Again, it's not what you're eating that's the problem. It's what's eating at you. And so diets put the focus on food when it really should be on something else, something deeper. And I actually have a really good example that illustrates this point. I had a patient who came in and told me that maybe some of my other people had emotional issues or were emotionally eating or had conflicts or they were using food for some purpose, but she told me she was a food addict, and furthermore, she could prove it. So I said, oh, you're a food addict? Well, I don't believe in food addiction. I believe in eating addiction, but that's different than being addicted to the substance of food. So she tells me how she was having a really nice evening, chilling out, watching TV, and all of a sudden, nothing was bothering her. All of a sudden, as she put it, Ben and Jerry's was calling her name. She said, calling my name. She said, nothing was wrong. Everything was fine. I'm addicted to Chunky Monkey, she tells me. So I said, well, what show were you watching? She was watching Charmed, which was her favorite show, which was further evidence that, of course, she was happy. But when I asked her what the episode was about, and she started telling me, was when the devil comes and the sisters start fighting and everything gets really contentious. At that moment, she stopped and got that like Oprah aha look on her face. Uh-oh. Because at that moment, she realized that watching the show had activated her own sister stuff. But before she could even realize that she was bothered or stirred up to escape. And so this really illustrates that if we had just focused on ice cream, we would have missed the whole problem. When she resolved her sister stuff, ice cream was no longer a problem.
Mm-hmm.
So diets don't work because they make you focus on food, and it's not about food.
Mm-hmm. So you talked about, that was kind of a food trigger. What's the best way to deal with the food triggers that we have in our life?
Well, that is an interesting question, because most people think they're being triggered by food, just as she thought she was being triggered by Chunky Monkey. Most people think they're being triggered by food, but actually they're being triggered by some situation, some emotion, some conflict, something going on within themselves that they turn to food for, and they think, oh, it's the food, but it's really about something else. So if you're so quick to go to the food before you can realize what's wrong, then it's kind of a mystery. If you don't have me in an office with you saying, well, what happened and why, how do you figure it out? So I developed a formula that correlates certain foods with certain types of needs or wants. So for example, with my woman with the Chunky Monkey, her thing was ice cream. And if you turn to ice cream, anything sweet and smooth and creamy like ice cream or pudding or things like that, frozen yogurt, that is associated with the need for comfort, for soothing, for nurturing. So if your go-to is ice cream, maybe you want to look at, well, where in your life do you need soothing, and how else can you soothe yourself besides ice cream? Another category is pizza, pasta, bread, cake. Those are foods that are bulky, and so they symbolically fill a void. So if you find yourself turning to those are often an indication that you are lonely or empty, and you're filling up the emptiness within you symbolically with food. So then the idea would be to say, okay, how do I address my loneliness? How do I address my emptiness? Because food does it temporarily, and it doesn't really, it just distracts you from the emptiness. It doesn't really, truly fill it up. And the last category is crunchy. So crunchy food, anything with a crunch, chips or pretzels, that is associated with anger. If you find yourself going for the crunch, anything with a bite, maybe you're angry at some person or situation in your life, and you want to take a look at that instead of expressing it with food, and then probably getting mad at yourself for eating, which further displaces your anger onto you. So by understanding this formula, people are able to identify what their core need is and begin to address it in a different way.
Okay. Because I know we experience those every day, where we have, it's like, okay, why is it particularly that food and particularly that time or something that it's like you feel like, okay, I've got to have that. It's that time of day, it's late afternoon, I've got to have X.
Right. Now, and by the way, there's a difference between eating emotionally and, not every time you turn to cake are you feeling a sense of loneliness. I mean, cake, into each life, some cake must fall. This is what I believe. But when you're using food to resolve a psychological problem, when you're saying, oh, I will feel better when I have that, then it's a sign that you're trying to change the way you feel inside through what you're eating, as opposed to, oh, it's 4 o'clock, I'd like some tea and maybe a cookie. That's not emotional eating. That's just eating a cookie or two. And that's different. Yeah.
All right. So what role does the self-acceptance and self-esteem play in weight loss?
It's everything. It's everything, because our relationship to ourselves sets the stage for our relationship to other people and to food. So what do I mean by that? Well, if you're critical to yourself, then someone else who's critical to you may seem like someone who just knows you really well, not like someone who's critical. And you could inadvertently find yourself with people that are not serving you and making you feel bad about yourself, in which case food then is an escape. If you're critical to yourself, and you're saying mean things like, oh, you're such a loser and you don't deserve that and you're never going to get what you want and you have no willpower and all of those kinds of things, then you're going to feel bad and use food to get away from your own critical self. So self-acceptance, which to me means you accept the things you like about yourself and the things you don't. Say, you know what, there are things I like about me. There's some things I need to work on. Okay. But it's not that I've got to wait to be perfect to be acceptable. I accept the balance. And when you can do that and you're a lot more gentle with yourself, then you're more likely to comfort yourself with words rather than with food. If you're critical and mean and you have no self-esteem, you're in a constant battle with you. And then food is the escape. The nicer you are to yourself, the more compassionate you are to yourself, the better you feel. And if you feel good, you're not going to use food to escape. You don't need to escape. So self-esteem and sense of self is just really important. And that said, I should say that when I say self, I mean your whole self. Often people think of themselves as their bodies. I had this one patient once, and she told me that she took very good care of herself. She said she was the queen of self-care. This is how she describes herself. She said she didn't understand why she didn't feel better because she took such good care of herself. And I said, well, what do you mean? She said, well, I get my hair blown out every week. I get mani-pedis. I get facials. I get my nails done. I get my eyelashes done. I take great care of myself. I said, that's not self-care. That's grooming. You're not feeling good about yourself because you're talking meanly and cruelly to yourself. Self-care is to treat yourself as you would treat a friend, to talk to yourself as you would talk to a friend. And if a friend ate a couple of brownies, I don't think you'd say to that friend, wow, you are such a loser. I can't believe you. You suck. You'd say, okay, no big deal. Maybe something was bothering you. Maybe they were really good, whatever, right? And if a friend was upset, you wouldn't say, here, have some ice cream. You'd talk to your friend. Right? So to be able to have a sense of self that is more than what you see in the mirror, and to appreciate the range of who you are, and to attend to the inside you, has huge implications on food, because thoughts and beliefs lead to feelings, lead to behavior. If you feel good about yourself, you feel good. If you feel good, you don't need to escape with food.
That is so true. It does start with our inside and then works its way out.
Exactly. Happiness is an inside job.
Yeah. All right. And for our listeners who want to make some changes, even today, what are some things they can do to create some change in the way they're living?
Well, I'm going to talk about something that they can actually do as soon as they stop listening. And then I'm going to talk about some ways that they can practice a new way of relating to themselves. Okay, here's what I want you to do. As soon as you stop watching this, I want you to go and throw out your scales. Throw out your bathroom scale, because it is not your friend. It does not measure your value, and it just is a torture device that lives in your home. And you will feel so much better when you no longer are measuring your value and your sense of self by the number on the scale. I promise you, you're not going to blow up like a balloon because you're not stepping on the scale. You will feel better because you won't be every morning or once a week or however often you weigh yourself. You won't be thinking about whether you're good or bad by what that number is. And that is super powerful.
Mm-hmm.
I did a video for my video series where I smashed the scale. It was so powerful and empowering. And I got all this email from people going, "Oh my God, I did it. It was great. I'm free. I'm free." So get rid of your bathroom scale first and foremost. Okay. So that's what you can do immediately. How you can start relating to yourself differently is to really get rid of your inner critic. That inner critic that says things like, "You're not good enough, you have no willpower, and by the way, so often it speaks in second person. People come in and they say things like, "Oh, I went to a party, over the weekend, and they had all this really delicious food there, and I just thought, I'm at a party, why not? I just won't go crazy. So I ate it. And then afterwards I thought, you shouldn't have eaten that. You're never going to lose weight, et cetera, et cetera." So what happens? They go from, "I wanted to eat the food at the party. I thought it would be okay," to this critical "you." That's mean. And so one way of identifying your inner critic is when you talk to yourself in second person.
Mm-hmm.
Catch yourself talking to yourself in second person and put that back to first person. When I have people do that, "You have no willpower. You're such a loser." I say that again, but say "I." And they're like, "I have no willpower. Oh, that's mean." "I'm such a loser. Oh, that's mean." Somehow, it's easy to say to yourself when it's you. So the first thing to do is stop that critic. Identify when you hear it, challenge it. And the other thing that you can do is to start to, and these things are combined, these things go along with each other. So with the what do you do if you're not criticizing yourself? You're comforting yourself, you're supporting yourself. So how do you support yourself? The words you use and the way that you say it. So now, again, another example, patient came in, said to me, "Dr. Nina, I tried talking to myself in a nice way and it didn't work. It didn't work at all. I didn't feel any better." So I said, "Okay, what did you say?" She said, "Well, I told myself, it's okay. You're going to feel better soon. You're all right." I said, "Of course you didn't feel better. There is nothing comforting about that." But you can say the same words in a different way. You're okay. It's going to be all right. You're going to feel better. Right? Same words, totally different feeling. Again, the way you talk to yourself, the right tone feels like a verbal hug, right?
Mm-hmm.
So to be able to talk to yourself in a kind tone when you're upset, give yourself comfort words instead of comfort food, and you will see a huge difference.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like some really good ideas there. I know I had to disattach myself because I was trying to weigh myself every day, and it was like just emotional roller coaster.
Yes.
And I had to, I don't remember if I actually completely took it out for a while and just didn't even have it around, but I stopped and said, okay, I'm going to go to, a designated length of time, then I will weigh myself. I will not weigh myself in between and, kind of inch it out a little farther and farther. And that did help because you get
Yes.
so obsessed with it. I mean, it's crazy.
And we as women, our weight fluctuates anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So just naturally 2 or 3 pounds, but if that 2 or 3 pounds makes you feel terrible about yourself and then turn to food or do something, it becomes this horrible cycle that's so self-destructive.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not helpful when you think, or thinking really bad about yourself. Yeah. And then you completely, binge or, do something crazy. And it's like, okay, where did I lose control of the situation?
Right. Yeah.
All right. So a lot of people, myself included, have, lost weight and gained it back. And some people are always on the yo-yo dieting cycle, going up and down, up and down. What causes people to sabotage their weight loss? I've so been there and done that.
Right. I think a lot of people can relate to that question. And the answer is as individual as each person, but there are some common reasons and some common themes that I see. One of them is a fear of intimacy. I hear a lot of, when I lose weight, I'll date.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they, at any weight, by the way, 10 pounds up, 50, 20, 100 pounds up. Well, you know what? There are dating sites for someone who's going to want to date you at whatever weight you are. I mean, that's the truth. We live in that world where, there are dating sites for plus-sized women. You could date at whatever size you are. So that's really not, that's just an excuse. And usually when I delve deeper, it becomes, what it really is when I lose weight, I will date, and that scares the heck out of me. So I'm losing weight. So consciously, you're like, yes. And unconsciously, it's, oh no. Now I'm going to have a relationship. So, and if you have fears about relationships, if you have had bad relationships, or your parents modeled a relationship that was not something that you want to emulate, then relationships can be scary. Then you really don't want to date, and it becomes fused. Losing weight equals I'm somehow obligated to date. But so fear of intimacy is one. Fear of objectification is another. People, especially for people who have a history of abuse, feeling like a thing. I've had people say, well, people look at me like, and I can see these guys looking me up and down, and they're scoping me out, and it's like, oh, I need a shower. And so the sense of being objectified and sort of sexualized is very scary. Another reason is safety. This really broke my heart. I saw a long time ago a 13-year-old girl who was probably 200 pounds overweight. And one day she said to me, how did she put it? She said, bad things don't happen to fat girls. So that on some level, she thought that she was keeping herself safe from the big bad world by staying big. She also said, and this is another reason, she said that she didn't know who she'd be if she lost weight, that she would be somehow less huggable. That's how she put it. Like she wouldn't be herself. And so there's that fear of your weight, as much as you may hate it, can become an identity. And who are you going to be? I mean, the answer is you're going to be you. You're going to be you, just with a different number. But a lot of people feel like they're going to turn into somebody else, or they expect to turn into somebody else. When I lose weight, I'm going to be more confident. I'm going to be more outgoing. I'm going to be more this or that. And then they lose weight, and they're still their shy selves, just thinner. They're still not confident, just thinner. And it could be really troubling, because then you've got to look at what's making you not have confidence in yourself. If you can blame it on weight, it's a lot easier. And the last one, which is an interesting one because it's very unexpected, is fear of happiness. Right? Like you think, what do you mean fear of happiness? Who doesn't want to be happy? We all want to be happy. Isn't that what we want? We'll be happy. But when you dig deeper, people often have fears about happiness. Oh, if I get too happy, it'll get taken away from me. It's like, oh, I can't step on that rug of happiness because someone's going to pull it out from underneath me. Or they feel like somehow they don't deserve it, and so they're going to lose it. So as long as they're a little unhappy, or a lot unhappy with their weight, nothing bad is ever going to happen. And when we identify these core beliefs and challenge them, they invariably are then able to lose weight, because the blocks, these are the blocks that cause the sabotage.
Yeah, that sounds very familiar, because it's like you focus so much on the weight, and like that has got to be the answer to everything. And then you get the weight off, and then you're going, okay, it wasn't the answer I was anticipating here. It just...
Right. It isn't an answer. It's just like, there you are, just, you're still the same person. You just weigh a different amount. And
while that's nice, it's like it's not nice enough for you to want to stay there.
Well, there's the hope that by losing weight, you'll lose the things that are unlikable about you, and you'll gain this new way of being in the world that you think is better. Right?
Yeah. Well, this has been awesome. Why don't you tell us about your free giveaway for our listeners?
I'd be happy to. So I created a 3-day video series called Crack the Code of Emotional Eating, in which I help you crack the code of emotional eating and figure out what's eating at you instead of focusing on what you're eating. I also help you stop feeling self-conscious about your weight or anything else, which is a really important thing. A lot of people feel very self-conscious, and it's awful. So I wanted to help them out with that. And I give you a diet that has nothing to do with food. And it only takes a couple of hours at the most, but it will change your life. So check it out. Crack the code to emotional eating.
All right. So there's all sorts of great stuff in there. And if somebody wants to connect with you in person, how would they do that and learn more?
They can go to my website, which is winthedietwar.com, and you can also access my my program. If you want to do my 30-day program, you can access my free video series, my podcast, and my blog. I also answer all of my email personally. I may not do it right away, but if you write to me, I will write you back. So you can reach me through there as well.
All right, well, that is awesome. And thank you, Dr. Nina, for being with us today. It has been a very roller coaster ride a little bit. And thank you, everyone, for listening. I hope you got some great information out of this, something to think about going forward. Come back tomorrow for more of the Gut Health Turnaround series.